Today's going to be our last day of going over adding and subtracting rationals. Our first two examples are going to be similar to what we did yesterday. So A and B is similar to what we did yesterday. C, D, and E is going to be a little bit new. You'll notice that here we're going to be working with trinomials as our denominator. But just as a quick review of what we did yesterday, what we have is an x plus 4 as the denominator and an x. So that means our common denominator is x and x plus 4. We have x and x plus 4. That means that our first term, what it's missing is an x, so we multiply it by an x. The second term, it's missing an x plus 4, so we put an x plus 4. Now, 3 times x is 3x. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 4 is 20. Now, since we have a common denominator, we're going to combine the denominator. So what we have is x and x plus 4. Now what we're going to do is we're going to combine the numerator. We have 3x minus 5x, which is negative 2x. Then we have a 20, but in front of the 20 is a subtraction sign, so we're going to put minus 20. Now we notice that they both have a negative 2 in common, so we're going to factor out a negative 2, and we're going to put x plus 10. And the denominator is the same, x and x plus 4. So that right there is our first answer. Now, for our second answer, we're going to be looking at our excluded values. Remember, our excluded values is what gives us 0 for our denominator. So when we're looking at it, we see that we have a 0. So that would be x cannot equal 0. Then what we have is a negative 4. So we have 0 and negative. Looking at letter B, we're looking at our denominators, x minus 8, x plus 1. So that means our common denominator is x minus 8, and we have x plus 1. We have x minus 8, we have x plus 1. So that means our first term, we're going to multiply it by x plus 1. Our second one, we're going to multiply it by x minus 8. Now, for the first one, when we're multiplying it by the x plus 1, we're distributing the 6 to each of the terms. So that becomes 6x plus 6. We're going to distribute the x to each of the terms. So that becomes x squared minus 8x. Now, just like the last time, we're going to add the like terms. I'm going to start with the x squared being my first term, and I'm going to go in descending order, meaning I'm going to go down. So I start with the x squared. Then I'm going to be looking at my x's. I have 8x minus 6x minus 8x, which is negative 2x. Then I have a positive 6. And in the denominator, x minus 8 and x plus 1. Now, this is a trinomial on the top, but it's not factorable. So our answer is just this. Now, when we're stating our excluded values is what gives us 0 for the denominator. So we're trying to figure out what gives us 0 for the denominator. If we're looking at our denominator, we have an x minus 8, so that would be 8. We have an x plus 1, so that would be minus 1. Now, for letter C, this is going to be a little bit new. We have a trinomial, just as I mentioned before. So when we have a trinomial, we're going to factor it. We're looking for two numbers that multiply together give us 6 and add up to 5. And that would be 3 and 2. So what we have is x plus 3, and we have x plus. So that means that our common denominator is x plus 3, x plus 2. For the first term, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by the x plus 2. And the reason that we're multiplying it by the x plus 2 is because if we look at our denominator, we have an x plus 3 and an x plus 2. It already has an x plus 3, so it's missing an x plus 2. Now what we're going to do is we're going to distribute the x to each of the terms. So we get x squared plus 2x. Now, if we're looking at our second term, what we notice is that it has an x plus 3, it has an x plus 2. So that means there's nothing we need to multiply it to already have the denominator. So we're going to keep the 3 right here. We're going to add the like terms. There are no like terms, so we put x squared plus 2x plus 3 over x plus 3x plus 2. Now, before we end it, we need to find our excluded values. Our excluded values is what gives us 0 for the denominator. And we see that it would be x cannot be -3 and -2.